So, good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's time for the closing section. Oh, I agree with you. We would like to thank again all the people involved in this conference. Delegates, track chairs, keynote lecturers, members of the scientific committee, sponsors, everybody, for the fantastic participation in this 22nd annual conference of the International Sustainable Development Research Society. The feedback during these 3 days was very positive. And the average quality of the presentations during these 3 days was also very impressive. So that's great. And I think we can say, well, let's repeat this. Let's keep improving. Let's keep improving the level and say thanks to everybody again. Now, and before closing my speech, I would like to call the following people to join us here in the stage. From the organizing committee, Paulo Antunes, Nuno Videira, João Joanás de Melo. Please come. Please join us. José Carlos Ferreira, Antia Distalef, André Mascarenhas, Alexandra Polido, Ana Rita Domingues, Inês Cosme, Patrícia Ferreira, Rosa Coelho, Conceição Capelo, Nuno Martins, Evandro Moreto, Marcelo Montano e Helder Guimarães. A big applause. I'm so thankful for your support, for your engagement, for your smiles, for your great work. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your words. But I think we need to thank the chairs of the conference as well. Professor Tomás Ramos, thank you very much for all your initiative. Professor Vicente, thank you. Thank you, Sandra. Professor Sandra Caeiro. So, thank you too.
Thank you very much, Rita. You are an amazing group. Now I'll ask and invite Professor Rui Santos Rui and Professor Sandra Caeiro after Rui.
Just a very few words. 3 big thank you. First, thank you once again for coming. Thank you for your contribution to the success of the conference. And a big thank you for making our life easy in managing all the event. Thank you very much. For me, to help in organizing the event was really a fantastic and exciting adventure, working with this fantastic group. So it was a pleasure. It was not really an effort. Now enjoy Lisbon and Portugal if you can, and hope to see you soon, and at least at Bogota. See you.
Okay, just before the thanks, and I won't repeat myself, I just want to give some practical informations that I think delegates ask us already. One is related with the proceedings, with the e-book of proceedings, not only of the main conference but also of the pre-event, and they will be available hopefully during next week. They can be downloaded in the website of the society for the members, but also it will be sent to all delegates in a link available on the website. Also, the information is about the submissions for the special volumes in the 3 journals. We also sent that information to delegates, and it will be available on the website. So don't worry, because everybody will know all the procedures. Also is already available on the website the list of the participants that were here for networking, for people that you know, you can have access to it. And one more thing, as you know, during the conference we try to download some photographies in our social media, namely in Facebook and Twitter. You can also put your photos you've taken, information, feedback. Let's turn the conference alive also after it. I also, at the end, of course, would like to thank all of you, all the delegates. It was a joint and long journey, but we are happy that everything was hopefully okay. And want to thank all of us. And in particular, now I would like to call the great student assistant team that we have helping you and us during all these days. And I'm going to call them to come here into the stage. So, Ana Carolina Mendes, Ana Filipa Ferreira, Ana Val, Catarina Vieira, Cristina Pereira, Filipa Fernandes, Gonçalo Duarte, Joana Jorge, Joana Santos, João Sousa, Lisandra Miguel, Luís Caixinho, Massa Mapper, Marco Turkurtz, Maria Gaspar, Miguel Lourenço, Miguel Sequeira, Paulo Araújo, Renato Monteiro, Rita Lopes, Rui Sebastian, Tânia Silva, Telmo Guedes e Teresa Briços. Thank you so much. Paulo Araújo, Renato Monteiro, Rita Lopes, Rui Sebastian, Tânia Silva, Telmo Guedes e Teresa Briços. Thank you so much.
Professor Pauline Deutz, Vice President of the International Sustainable of the ISDRS. Please, thank you, Pauline.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Thomas, for the opportunity to say a few words in closing on behalf of ISDRS. I don't want to be too serious at this point after we've had big rounds of applause, but I think it's worth having a few reflections on what we might have learned over the previous few days. Doing some back-of-the-envelope sums just now, we reckon there may have been somewhere around 375 presentations and posters at this conference, which, as far as I'm aware, is a record for ISDRS, which is fantastic. And as has already been observed, there was no sacrifice in quality to get that number. People should be very encouraged by what they've heard. In particular, some wonderful presentations from PhD students and early career researchers who I'm sure will go on to great things, and I hope will remain part of the ISDRS family as you go ahead and do that. Now, one of the comments, or probably the most frequent comment that I've heard from people, is about the diversity of papers, and roughly equal numbers of people will say it's fantastic, and others will say, ooh, it's a bit too diverse. Now, I have to say, coming from a geography department, I don't see it as being particularly diverse. I've got colleagues who examine issues to do with women as landowners in the 18th century, reconstructing paleo environments using pollen, or using computers to predict flooding by some mysterious means. So there's really very little empirical or methodological or cultural research overlap between these people who barely communicate in some ways, but I'll leave that to one side and point out how much we have in common by contrast, and although it's completely obvious to say so, all these papers in some way relate to sustainability, and we shouldn't forget that. We've heard how important it is, how urgent it is to make some progress from, well, basically every talk we've heard, but certainly all the keynote speakers have made that very clear, drawing on different contexts. And listening to all the papers that I've heard during the week, there's some common themes that come through that we need to give some further attention in the future. And these themes apply not just to academics, but also perhaps to companies working towards sustainability, policymakers. There's probably many more that you can think of, but just to mention a couple. The first one is to do with data, accessing, collecting, analysing the vast amount of very difficult quantitative, qualitative data that it's needed to make rational, what we might call science-based judgments. More subtle, perhaps, is understanding who's involved in making those judgments, and that they're seldom entirely objective, even when you might happen to achieve a large amount of data. And there's people in many different empirical contexts exploring those issues. Another issue that's come out several times this week is how do you engage the public in sustainability endeavours? And slightly intriguingly, what happens when the public gets thoroughly engaged and don't behave in the way that you expected that they might, or makes a decision that appears to be completely irrational even in their own interests? Maybe we're too confined to our ivory towers to understand different groups in society and different pressures that may be on people and the way they're thinking. So over the 22 years that the conference has been happening, and even the last 11 years that I've been coming, there have been changes for the good. For example, we heard about how the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as opposed to the Millennium Development Goals, pay more attention to human rights and gender issues. So we're looking beyond more sort of obvious targets, not just accepting averages, but expecting a more thorough commitment. There's some very stringent carbon emissions reductions targets, at least, and I think progress has been made. But we also know very well that there are still some immensely serious issues that won't go away. Since 2005, we've had a serious financial crisis. I won't say quite a global crisis, but it's certainly covered much of the globe. There are some very, well, let's say intractable conflicts going on in the world, which have spillover effects that we heard about yesterday, which also, I think, relate to people being disenfranchised in some way, feeling that they're being left behind, having different views, and not feeling that they are in communication or that people are listening to them. So there's much work to be done, which in some sort of ironic sense, I suppose, keeps us in jobs for at least a little bit longer. hopefully will get us all to next year. I really thoroughly look forward to meeting everyone again in Bogota. I'm sure that Eduardo will do an absolutely superb job with his team for the conference next year. I did have the opportunity to visit Bogota a couple of months ago and thoroughly enjoyed the experience. It's a very interesting location. Although I didn't get very far outside Bogota, I did have the opportunity to experience some of the diversity of Colombia. It has amazing food and fruits, for example, which I'd never seen anywhere else. So it's really a wonderful place to visit. And whilst you're there, perhaps you'll drop in and have a look at the conference as well. Whether or not you're able to attend next year, I do hope that you will stay in touch with ISDRS. If you're not a member already, we would love for you to join and become involved in some of our working groups and activities that go on with 30 throughout the year. Perhaps you'd like a mug to take home with you. I'm afraid we do live in a capitalist society and there's a small fee for the mug, but I'm sure you'll consider it worthwhile. I've been, as I say, coming since 2005. There is 1 year that I missed. But for me now, coming to this conference is almost like a family reunion. It's great to meet up with my friends and to meet new friends over the course of the 3 days. It's a very intense experience. So by the time you go home, you feel like you have made many new friends. And as I say, I hope that as many of us as possible in different ways will be able to keep in touch into the future. So the final thing that falls to me to do with very great pleasure is to say thank you to all the people who put in such immense hard work to this conference to make it such a wonderful experience. If we could have a round of applause for the entire team, that would be very good. Thank you. And just finally, I've got a little bag of tricks hiding under the table here, which is gifts from the UK for chairs of the conference. There's no doubt some complex supply chains involved, and you'll recognise a bag from Portugal, but what inside is fairly English. And I'm sure you'll find a way of sharing these things in some sort of mutually satisfactory arrangement. So I will say
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
This is for you. Thank you very much, Pauline. Before closing the section, I would like to invite Professor João Jonas de Melo, Jonas, to give some information for the tours for tomorrow.
Good afternoon. Well, it is a pleasure to be, probably saying the last words of the conference. That means that we are going on to better pastures, so to say. Could you please put the slide on the sustainability tours? Thank you. Among many other things that we did, one of my tasks was to organize these sustainability tours. It was always my feeling that you can only protect and defend what you know. And so I've always looked upon nature as something to be really enjoyed. And it is the best way to actually protect it. And these tours were organized with this in mind. So we are going in two groups of about 50 people to absolutely wonderful places. I really expect that we'll have a good time. Tour number one is to the region of Alentejo. We are going to the World Heritage city of Évora. And then we are going also to Esporão, which is the farm where the fine wine that you had in the welcome reception to drink. So you are actually going to see the vineyard where that wine comes from, and and how they do it, and environmental practices, sustainable practice that they are holding. Tour number 2 is to Nature Park of Arrábida. It's perhaps one of my favorite places on earth, and I hope that those of you who I will have the pleasure to join tomorrow will also be fans of it. So these are really two beautiful tours. The meeting point for everybody will be at please 7:45 at near the subway exit at Praça de Espanha. Many of you already passed through there. The place is marked in the local neighborhood map in your conference booklet. So if you have any doubt, please ask before leaving today. So please be there at 7:45. The bus will leave at 8 with whomever is there, because we have a tight schedule, so it's best to be there a bit before time. And we expect to arrive in Lisbon more or less around 6:30. So you will have time for a shower before dinner, which you will most certainly need, because it's going to be a very hot day. In Alentejo we'll get probably around 40 degrees Celsius, and in Arrábida we'll get at least 35, more rather than less than this. You'll survive. It's dry heat, but there are a few precautions that we should all take. Wear comfortable clothing, comfortable footwear. Don't wear flip-flops. We are going to walk a bit, not much, but a bit. So wear something that is comfortable for a bit of walk. Well, it's not a mountain walk, but it's still a bit of walk. And please bring a hat and bring sunblock, because you will most certainly need it as well during the day. And also bring water. We'll have some backup. There will be several stops, of course, but you will need water on the trip to be really hot. So it's a basic precaution so that everybody comes out of there in not only happy but also in good health. Thank you very much for your attendance. I hope that you'll become fans of not only Portuguese conference sites but also the Portuguese landscape, which is of course much more interesting than a conference site, be it the best conference in the world, which of course this was. But nevertheless, I think that discussing these things out in the field is always better than doing it. Of course, we cannot take 500 people at the same time into this kind of trip, but at least 2 times 50 of you will have that opportunity. Thank you very much for being interested and booking these trips like a month in advance or so, which was a good idea because they were booked well in advance. Thank you very much. See 100 of you tomorrow.
Thank you very much, João. Now, well, this is the end of the conference. Thanks very much. Have a nice tour tomorrow. Have a nice trip back. See you in Bogota.